I welcome you all. Thank you for being here. I'm Melissa Lerner, and please allow me to introduce my co-chair and platinum sponsor, Marilyn Schumann. I also want to thank all of you who are here today, who are cozy in this room together, who have felt a positive feeling about the Pines, who have shared a special experience about the Pines, who have a love and an interest of what occurs every day at the Pines. Whether you're a sponsor or here as an individual or as a guest, we say thank you. With love and gratitude, we truly say thank you. Are the beautiful ladies up, Liz?
They are. Can you stand, please, right here?
Tana.
Yes. PowerPoint.
Okay.
If you wanted something done, you asked Tana and John. They helped restore the Katazan. Its leaky roofs and crumbling tiles were soon repaired by Tana's guile. She got to work, gathered friends, helped raise the cash. The job got done. Now all enjoy the house of John, Tana's beloved Katazan. Grazie, grazie, Tana and John.
Ah, that's nice.
Tana and I met at a luncheon soon after I became a widow, and she invited me out to lunch. We went to lunch, but she didn't have a checkbook, so I had to pay for my lunch. Tana never let me forget it, and every time we went to lunch after that, she refused to let me pay.
No, I have something special.
I first met Tana 21 years ago when I was at the Ringling Museum of Art, and she was the absolute most incredible person, as many of you know. But Tana really taught me it's important to have wonderful friends, and especially to have great girlfriends, and to be a good friend.
Tana lived in an enormous, gorgeous penthouse where she entertained stylishly, both socially and for community events. When her husband died, she sold that place and moved next door to the condo development or building in which I live. It's not a development, it's just a building. She had a much, much smaller apartment. She loved it, she loved it. And she started coming to my parties, and she brought me a gift of a 3-foot-high knitted stuffed Father Christmas, which I still have. And it's here, you won't, you'll have to look at it later. But, but I still have her wonderful gift from a wonderful woman.
If I may interject for just a moment, as we remember and honor Tana, who was Marilyn and I's co-chair as well, it was important for her bestest friends to be here today. They are the Tanettes, as you can see by their sashes. Tana had passion and drive and sensitivity. She was so generous, and she was truly the wind beneath our wings. So as the Tanettes share their Tana-isms, as they call it, the things that Tana would say.
Hi, I'm Marjorie North, and I have covered a few parties in my day. And I have to say, no kidding, the best ones were chaired by Tana Sandifer. She didn't chair a party as much as she asked her best friends and gave them the gift of giving her money. Shortly before Tana died, I was in the hospital getting a shoulder replacement, and I still have the most beautiful orchids that she wasn't well enough to go to the hospital and ask my daughter to please pick them up and deliver them. And I hope those orchids last a lot longer than Tana.
Hi, I'm Sophia LaRusso, and I knew Tana for several years. But Tana had wonderful sayings, and one of the sayings she would have said is, always remember you are unique, just like everybody else.
Hi, I'm Gracie McGillicuddy, and as you notice, I'm not wearing a hat. And the reason I'm not wearing a hat is because I'm wearing Tana's hair. Tana was really, really into hair. She told Jossie she needed to let her hair grow. But I felt really honored. She said she was going to let her hair grow gray just like mine. So just about a week before she passed away, I was at an event with her, and she said, Gracie, I was there, and some lady came up to me, and she said, "You don't look like your pictures at all." And she said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Aren't you Gracie McGillicuddy?" They didn't know me. And she said, "No." And so anyway, so today I'm wearing Tana's hair and wearing the angel that she gave me on my lapel. Tana, we love you. You're an angel. And we're all here to think about you. I love you.
I'm Roxy Jurdy, and I met Tana when I moved here 3.5 years ago, and she was one of the very first folks to welcome me at the Community Foundation. And as I got to know Tana and spend time with her, I learned how much she loved the Home Shopping Network and bargains. So when I needed a hat for a picnic, I have baseball hats, I called Tana and I said, "Where do I go to get a hat?" And she said, "First of all, get a fascinator," which was a new word for me, "and go to Steinmart." So I went to Steinmart and got this hat for $25, and I called Tana, and she was thrilled. So it reminded me of Tana knew a great bargain, and she loved the Pines, and I thought how the Pines is top quality, and it fits for anybody's budget. So it seemed to be a nice analogy of hats and reasonable and quality, and the Pines, and a great place for everyone. So thank you.
I'm Gloria Moss. You've heard some wonderful stories about Tana, so all I'll say is I'm going to miss her terribly, and her 4th of July parties where she invited everybody to watch the fireworks.
I'm Janet Hunter, and all I have to say is that when Tana passed on, I lost a very dear friend, and she will be sorely missed.
My best friend, and I cannot say enough about her. She influenced so many people in this community and had so many friends, and she influenced them all to join a nonprofit, get excited. She used to buy 30, 40 tickets to things to have tables so they could learn all about the organization. She was an angel, an absolute angel. She did the decorations on the table. She chaired the fair. She gave her means, and she just was, I call her a Pied Piper. And she changed things and made this world a better place in all different places. Well, it's Sarasota. And now that she's in heaven, heaven will be better for Tana Sander for being there. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanettes, and for your beautiful, beautiful words, your Tanisms. And thank you for the tribute to Tana Sandifer and to the Wit and Wisdom. Melissa introduced me. My name is Marilyn Schumann, and I wonder for just a few minutes if I can share with you what brought me to here today. And I hope you can see me. I'm a little height challenged. In January of 2012, my husband, Irv Schumann, who was a cancer patient, took a very bad fall and fractured his pelvis. He had to be hospitalized, and after a week at Sarasota Memorial, I was informed that he would need rehab. And then I was handed 2 full pages of every rehab facility in the entire area. And even though I was familiar with a few names, I was totally confused. And that's when the staff at the Sarasota Memorial recommended the Pines to me, and I had never heard of it before, but I took their advice
And a few days later, Irv was at the Pines. Irv was at the Pines for 2 months. And for 2 months, I was there every day from late morning after his therapy to early evening after his dinner and when he was settled down. I got to know the Pines. I got to know the doctors, the nurses, the therapists, the social workers, the wonderful aides, the dietitians, the administration, and on and on and on. I got to see the nursery and the daycare centers where babies as young as 6 weeks were being taken care of in a safe and secure environment, while many of them had parents, moms, dads, and even grandparents who were able to go back to work. I saw the seniors in all stages of aging, needy, many in their 90s and into their 100s, and many of them with their finances had run out. I saw the caring, the concern, the compassion. I saw the cheerfulness, and I saw the cleanliness. I saw the day-to-day operations, and I liked what I saw. The end of March of 2012, Irv came home. The physical therapy was a success. However, our fight with cancer was not. We had run out of miracles, and he died in April of 2012. Now, we are Florida residents. However, we do go back up to the Buffalo, New York area every summer. So when I came back in October of 2012, I went right back to the Pines. I became a volunteer. I would take the wheelchair-bound patients and residents out for strolls and just to visit and just to chat. At that point, I had met Estelle Crawford, my dear friend now, and Estelle approached me and asked me if I would serve on the committee for the 2013 Wit and Wisdom, and I agreed. And then Estelle approached me and said, would I serve as a co-chair for the 2014 Wit and Wisdom with Melissa Lerner? And I agreed, and I thank Melissa for all of her experience and for showing me the way. Thank you, Melissa. And then Estelle at the same time approached me and asked me if I would serve on the board of the foundation. And then I agreed again. So then I realized that the Pines really had become a part of my life. It was there when we needed it, and now it was my turn to give back. And so, in just a final note, I just want to say, if any of you have never visited the Pines, I urge you to come take a tour of this fabulous facility, this wonderful senior daycare center. And the staff and any one of us would be more than happy to make the arrangements at your convenience. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is such a pleasure to be here. That is my story, and I thank you for listening. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce John Overton, the President and CEO of the Pines of Sarasota.
So hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us at this very special moment in our history. My tenure here at Pines has been a fabulous long-term experience. And while I will not be retiring from my full-time duties as CEO until mid-year in 2015, the succession planning at Pines has been underway for some time now. After a national search The selection committee of the Pines Board, led by our chairman, Craig Coach, has chosen an extremely capable leader to advance Pines to the next chapter of its storied history. I've known this individual for a number of years now, and I can attest to the fact that he's the right guy at the right time for the new job. It will be a seamless transition and a continuation of the quest of quality and continued growth that has been our hallmark for the past dozen years. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome our future CEO at Pines of Sarasota, Mr. David Sylvester. I have one more important, very important duty. Let's enjoy lunch. Thank you.
My name is Estelle Crawford. I'm president of the Pines of Sarasota Foundation, and I am equally committed to ensuring that before this luncheon is up, you will have even greater familiarity with the magic of Pines. This is Pines. It's not chandeliers. It's quality, compassionate care. It's providing a safe environment, secure, joy, a purposeful life. And if that resonates with you, then I ask you to please help us and consider supporting Pines. For today, we have the benefit of a $25,000 challenge grant. And that's been made possible by 3 different groups. 1, the Benderson family. 2, Willard Saperstein and Karen Saperstein in honor of Marilyn Schumann. And 3, the Tonettes. So, before you leave today, if you would consider helping us make that $25,000 challenge. There are envelopes on your table, little cards, and there'll be donation boxes on your way out. It means an awful lot to us, and I thank you for your consideration. And now, for the next part of our program, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our award-winning journalist, TV anchorman, and moderator extraordinaire, Ray Collins.
I'm glad you read my writing so well there. Thank you. That's right. Thank you. Great to be here again. Great to help the Pines. Great part of our community. I want to turn your cell phones down, by the way, as we get started here. We've got another great panel. If we could have the panelists come up. In fact, I think, Paul, why don't you sit right there? You can read each of the panelists' biographies in the program, but I'll do a little, as we call it, a headline right now for you. Our first panelist, who's sitting closest to me, was born in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and began playing golf at the age of 5. He moved to Sarasota, went to Sarasota High School, Florida State University, and turned pro in 1981. He spent 300 weeks in the top 10 of golf from 1988 to 1994. He won 11 tournaments on the PGA Tour, including the PGA Championship in 1993. In December of that year, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and underwent chemotherapy and radiation. He came back in 2000 to win the Sony Open just 7 years later. He became the U.S. Ryder Cup captain, an ESPN and ABC commentator, and has competed in the World Series of Poker. Please welcome a real Renaissance man, Paul Azinger. Our panelist in the middle was born in South Africa, in Rhodesia, began dancing when she was just 4 years old and still hasn't stopped. She became the principal dancer of the Stuttgart Ballet and went on to enjoy a major career all over the world. She performed. She founded ballet companies in Indiana and Florida, including the Sarasota Ballet back in 1990. She was one of the founders, yes, one of the founders of the Designing Women Boutique, also serving as president and CEO of that. She was elected to the Sarasota Community Hall of Fame Video Archives for her contributions to our community. Please welcome Jean Widener Goldstein. Our next panelist plays many roles in our community. Thank you. I was hoping you got that joke. I stayed up all night writing that joke. His story also began far from Sarasota. He was born in the UK and initially made his mark as a music promoter in Germany, where he lived for 28 years. He worked with over 130 musicians over 16 years, including Elton John, Bon Jovi, and Celine Dion. Not bad. He met his wife, Maria, and moved to Sarasota 12 years ago. He began a radio talk show, Talk of the Suncoast, interviewed over 2,000 guests. He's acted in local theater, emceed many galas and fundraisers, and in 2009 began to segue behind the lens, where he has since become a much sought-after photographer. Yep. In fact, if he is hired for your event, chances are people will see it, in large part due to his many supporters on Facebook. He became an American citizen earlier this year. Please welcome Cliff Rolls.
And I voted.
And he voted for the first time today. We'll talk about that. So I thought we'd start with Cliff and start with an easy question. Could you name all 50 state capitals, please?
Thank you.
Tallahassee.
I knew you'd get me for that.
All right.
Yeah.
Why don't you start us off? Cliff, tell us how it all began for you.
61, born in Croydon, Surrey, near London. Wonderful parents, both of whom left us far too early. Have a brother, lives in Milton Keynes. I studied at Birmingham College and moved to Germany, as you said, when I was about 21. Studied modern languages for business. Always had a bent for languages. My brother, computer sciences, as you can see, chalk and cheese. So I went and did the languages side. He was on the sciences. Studied in Birmingham. While I was there, I went to Germany and did a sabbatical for a year that took me back 2 years later to first of all work for a building company, and then found basically the love job, what I thought was going to be the love job for the rest of my life, which was looking after pop and rock artists in the music business, and looked after, as you said, 130 of the world's best for 16 years. I pushed them around and took them on stage and clubs and tours and things like that. And then about 1999 began my love of Florida and traveling to the USA. Came over by chance, discovered Sarasota in 2001. Met my wife, same year, same day. Got married 2002, green card, and have spent the last 12 years with you guys. Probably not one of you in here has not been photographed by me at one point. And I consider myself to be Sarasota's photographer and your photographer. And, it's just wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. And I love being an American citizen.
Well, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Jean, how did it start for you?
Well, I was born in Rhodesia, a British colony in Africa. I was taken to my first dancing lesson at 4 years of age, and I was completely in love from that moment. Totally focused, totally interested in just dance, dance, dance. We didn't have a ballet company, of course, in the country, and so I learned everything I knew from books. That is the closest I got to the great dancers of the world. And then eventually I was offered a position with the Cape Town Ballet Company, beautiful city, such a happy place to be. And then I was offered a contract with the Stuttgart Ballet in West Germany, and I followed a great choreographer, John Cranko, who has actually been called the best choreographer of our time. And I was so lucky to work with this man, to meet the great artists, musicians, dancers, pop artists of the world. And my life has just been magical. I'm very, very lucky. And of course, Sarasota is a utopia for all of us.
Well, we're lucky to have you here. Paul, how to start for you?
Well, I don't think I've ever done this before. But,
Good.
I was born in 1960 in Holyoke, Mass. My dad was in the Air Force for 20 years, retired lieutenant colonel, fought in 2 wars, Korea and Vietnam. I guess I'm 54 and I've lived in Florida 50 years. We lived in Homestead and Tampa a little while my dad was in Vietnam, and but mainly Sarasota since 6th grade, junior high school, and then high school here, and I went to college at Brevard Junior College, then to Florida State. My parents loved golf and played golf, and I played a lot of golf with them when I was growing up. But I wasn't really a great or gifted golfer. I couldn't break 82 days in a row when I was in high school. And I really didn't break 70 until my 2nd year of college. I had a lot of help along the way, great instruction. And I think that for whatever reason, you know, there's intangibles that allow people to be successful at a high level in anything that you do that requires a physical, I guess, intelligence to, you know, to be physically smart. And I wish I could put my finger on exactly what separates guys that make it and players that don't. But it's difficult to know why. I just know there's no shortcut to success, and you can't hope for it or wish for it, but you have to work and you have to prepare. And I'm just real fortunate that I've had the success I have had. I know that without my wife, Tony, I probably would have, I almost went to Tulane in New Orleans, and I know where I would have ended up had I gone there.
Bourbon Street, huh?
But she's the real backbone, I feel, for me, and I feel like, you know, I haven't played competitive golf now for over 4 years, and I wonder, how did I do it? How did I even do it? The commitment that it takes to be that guy. 30 years of living out of a suitcase, the first 4 years in a motorhome on the PGA Tour, and not a nice motorhome, but you know, it was 24 feet long, probably the width of these columns, and it was, you know, we just had a wonderful life. I think when I got sick in '93, I was probably, if I wasn't the best player in the game, I was certainly the hottest player. I think I had a ridiculous, like 11 top threes in 10 months during that time, and I'd won 4 tournaments in that span. It wasn't Tiger-like, but it wasn't bad. And but I think I came to the realization that it doesn't really matter what you accomplish in life. It's not always what we accomplish in life. Sometimes it's what you overcome. And so
Thanks.
I had great support around me always, and I'm just thankful for that.
Yeah,
Thankful to be here.
I want to talk, yeah. Gene, who are some of your early influences growing up? I know you mentioned John Cranker. Who else was a mentor for you that really helped define who you are today growing up?
Well, first of all, my family. I came from a large family, one of 6. My baby sister is sitting down there, visiting from Australia. And my daddy was in the Royal Air Force, was shot down over Germany, and his eardrums were burst. He eventually found his way back home and was demobbed, they call it. They sent him to Rhodesia because anybody who could train people to come back into the war, they would go immediately to all of the colonies and they would teach. And my dad met my mother with 3 young boys and never looked back. I was born in 1945, which is most probably why I'm so fascinated with the war and the great generation. I look around at all of the gentlemen in this room that did something wonderful for all of us and for the world. And it's something that's very important to me. My dad taught us ethics, my mother's strength and beauty. They loved culture. Rhodesia was so beautiful. The countryside was glorious. I loved plants. My mother can make a stick grow. She was incredible. My sister is exactly the same. And that's what Florida means to me as well, that beauty. So A lot of influences. John Cranko, the choreographer, yes, of course. My first ballet teacher was a woman who not only wanted to teach you technique, she wanted you to be seen as somebody on the stage that had something to say, a story to tell, not somebody that's boring. And so I learned also that we work and work and work. I was in the theater at 6 o'clock in the morning. I worked after the performances were done. That is how you become great. That is how you do something with your life. You just have to work harder than anyone else.
Right. Cliff, any early influences in your life that helped define who you are?
I think Dad was probably the first influence. He had the wit. We're in Wit and Wisdom today, and if anything, he had both. He had the absolute wonderful London sense of humour. I'm sort of Cockney on his side. And he would be the one to make the jokes, to make the facial expressions, he'd be the roles who played the role. To a very, I won't say serious mum, but one who made sure that, he didn't overdo it. I got one like that. So I took a lot from Dad. He also was the reason that I do languages, because he loved languages, and he'd sit with me and practice my French vocabulary every evening and my German grammar and whatever. He made sure that I was getting the right education, because I'm right-brained. Everybody that knows me knows theatre, music, acting, anything, photography, it's all right, as far as I know, it's right-brained, and that's what I am. I'm a type A total extrovert that loves to be out there and adores the adulation, whether it be through a mic, the fourth wall, or a photo lens.
He admits it, though, doesn't he? At least he admits it. The rest of us hide it better.
What am I going to say, Ray? Am I going to say, I'm a shy introvert? No. So anybody in this room that's come up against me knows what I'm like, and anybody that's seen me act in the theatre or has been my guest. I see Deborah Jacobs here, Sarah, everybody, Jean. I've interviewed here, and that one over there with the red hat, she's probably the reason I'm here, is Margie North. Because she was my mentor for many years when I started the radio show. She'd be on every 4 weeks, kicking me into gear and making sure that I didn't make the wrong mistakes. And she had the best column in Sarasota. We all know Margie's column was a thing we went to every Sunday. Well, and every day really, that influenced the whole of Sarasota and the Herald Tribune. So, yeah, I think influence is the guy who employed me for Polygram for the record company. I came out of looking after Celine Dion and a Swiss folklore singer and a xylophone player in Zurich. I was living down there, and this guy got hold of me and said, come and work for me, and he happened to be the boss of Phonogram Records, which was a subsidiary of Polygram Universal. And I went from Celine to Metallica, and right. So I was, and he said, if you want to survive your trial period at Phonogram, you're going to go down to that loudspeaker. You're going to watch Lars Ulrich on the drums. You're going to stay there for an hour. I could not hear for 3 days afterwards, but I survived. And it was the beginning of 16 wonderful years of the music business and looking after some of the world's greatest. And he influenced me a tremendous lot. Great deal of respect for Louis Spielman, the man who employed me in the record company. Here in Sarasota, I am just surrounded by influences, Ray. I photograph them every day. I've interviewed them all on a radio show. I've got to know how this town works. And I've come to meet some of the most intelligent, talented, philanthropically generous people I've ever met in my life. It took basically 50 years for me to get here and experience. But on the other hand, I needed those 50 years to build myself up doing whatever I did to be able to appreciate everybody in the community that I live with.
Timing, all about timing. In one sentence, what was Elton John like? One sentence, Elton John.
Two-sided, because I met him in '88 when he was going through a lot of problems, and it took 3 years in his own admission for him to get to a point in 1990 where he was a different person. And from that moment on, he was more positive about his life's outlook. But Elton's one of these wonderful chameleons who has gone through 5, 6 decades of number ones in the charts. The man's gone through tremendous changes in every year of his life. So there's no way you can put a saying, hey, he was a nice guy. Yeah. You know, he was Elton John. He is Sir Elton John.
All right, Paul, early influences in your life, a person or a mentor along the way?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out the right brain, left brain. Now, I think the right brain's the artist and the left brain's the engineer.
That's what they say, right?
It's whatever.
Right.
And you obviously have a convergence of the two in order to be able to do what you do.
He's not in his right mind.
That's right. Good one.
Oh, thank you.
I think that, my parents have been a huge influence on me, obviously, and of course my wife has been a huge influence. We got married very young, and I was 21 years old. She was 22 years old, almost 23. But wait, I better recover. Let's
what happened
see.
there? There's no
is she the most beautiful woman in the room? or is love really blind?
I can give you a ride home, by the way. There's a bus goes right by here.
I think that in order to be successful, you've had to have had people in your life that make a big difference in your life. And as a golfer, I felt, I needed instruction. I don't feel that I ever did anything that naturally, although I was unique in the way I looked. But there are no two swings that have ever looked exactly the same, are there? For those, how many of you play golf even?
Poorly.
So
yeah.
There's several that do, several that don't. But, I think that there's a uniqueness in every individual, and great instruction, I feel, requires the ability to accept the uniqueness and recognize the fingerprint, if you will, and deal in the fundamentals. And fortunately, the first coach I had, John Redmond, didn't really change the uniqueness of my grip and the way my head moved and things that other instructors would have tried to teach. And but I do say this earnestly, I don't believe I ever really learned anything on my own with respect to golf. My dad drummed it into my head that I had to have a militaristic approach, that you had to, dissect the golf course almost, hole by hole, shot by shot. And I took a real strategic, I guess, approach to it. But, I met a guy who I worked with who didn't know anything about golf. I met him through my wife, Tony, named Mac McKee, who was the kind of guy that would take on all comers at the fair and travel the fair. But he studied in East German philosophy and the ability to visualize and concentrate. And I went into that whole thing, and that was like another level compared to my friends who didn't delve into all that stuff. And so I was always of the ilk, I could leave no stone unturned. That if, there comes a point, though, in golf, when Byron Nelson said it best. He said, there are two kinds of players, those that need to know a little and those that need to know it all. Now, which one do you think's easier? And if you get, it's obvious, right? If you get to the point where you have to know it all, golf becomes more complicated. It becomes more difficult. It is really just a physical activity. And the more you glean, the more you become like Tiger wants to be. Tiger wants to know it all. And he wants to know it all because he thinks he can correct himself when things go wrong, but the opposite is happening. And if I were to ever coach Tiger, I would treat him like the bow and arrow, where he's the arrow and I would be the drawstring. And I don't think it would take more than 10 minutes to an hour. All you have to do is draw the bowstring back. And when you let him go, you have him pointed in the right direction again. It's not physical for Tiger, it's mental. What separated Tiger Woods was the mental greatness, not the physical. There was a convergence of the two, like we talk about. He physically is brilliant, physical genius, but it was his mind that separated him. He didn't hit every fairway or every green. It was his mind, and he's lost track of that.
So you think he's taken that too far now, and that's been his undoing?
Way to the extreme. Tiger has become the engineer, and I feel that that's to his detriment. And he won't come back, I don't feel. He won't win he won't break Jack's record. That's the goal, I suppose, until he realizes that there is no perfect motion. Name two swings that have ever looked the same.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Interesting. So it's not the back surgery. It's not the back surgery. It's the mental game for Tiger.
Well, Tiger's physical problems are obvious, and I feel that they have hindered him, certainly. But when he ran into the fire hydrant and his private life was exposed, it changed his mental approach. He's on the course wearing sunglasses now. He never wore sunglasses before. He doesn't want you to look into his eyes, I felt. And as an analyst, I've been able to watch him, in his prime. I competed against him. I've been paired with him in the last group on a Sunday. And I'll tell you what, when he walks down the hill to that first tee wearing black pants and a shirt the color of blood, it actually does influence you and impact you a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
But I don't feel the players are as scared of Tiger as they used to be. And he's not, all the while I think I looked at Tiger and I wondered, and I felt maybe he was the most disciplined athlete ever. Maybe certainly the most disciplined golfer ever. Little did I know when I was competing against him that I was more disciplined than he was. And now I think the players today know that he's not more disciplined than them, and he's lost that intangible.
Right. What was that joke a few years ago? Tiger Woods hit a tree one night and 15 girls fell out. Oh, too soon, folks? I'm sorry.
So is your wife the prettiest one in the room, or?
I think she is.
Is love just blind?
I think she's up there. We can take the bus home together, by the way. Gene, what is it about dance for you? Tell me how it feels to dance. What does it feel like inside when you dance?
Well, once you have managed to discipline your body and you have that control, it's incredible. I guess it must be what it feels like to be a bird, to fly, because you can make your body do anything. And then you put on top of that the fact that you can become somebody else. You don't have to be yourself. You can become a great woman. You can be a lost lover. You can be a Juliet. It's magic.
You still dance sometimes now?
No, I don't. I retired in 1981, and then I choreographed and built another company in the Midwest, and then started the ballet company here. So I have fibromyalgia, so that's kind of put a stop to any dancing that I want to do. And it also affects cognitively. The way I speak, sometimes I have to control my mind incredibly to try and get the words out. Whereas before I could, just talk extemporaneously.
You could blather on like I do?
I could, no. If I could blather like these two guys, I would.
Well, I know we might be finished by Saturday at this rate.
Hey, she figured us both out.
Cliff, is there a reoccurring theme in your successes? Or what do you attribute the successes you've had in life?
Total big-headedness and extrovertism.
Really?
It's funny, I was thinking to myself why I am as I am, because you guys know me, most of you know me as a photographer now. I don't know if you've ever been on the theater when I've been on the stage, but most of you know when I'm a photographer, I love getting the smiles out of you. It's very important to me to get you through the lens, to feel that love through the lens. And the same goes on stage when I'm acting. But I do need that fourth wall. I don't have many friends, really, apart from Facebook, which we'll talk about. But I don't have a great circle of intimate friends. I have a microphone in front of me. That is the barrier between me and the person. I have a fourth wall in front of me when I'm on the stage, and I have a lens in front of me when I am photographing. And I won't say that I'm unsociable. My wife would disagree. I'm not the big people person that you maybe think I am. I love being with you, but I love the thing between me and you that stops me making a fool of myself when I open my mouth. So, that's basically the recurring success. I think when I came to America, the accent played a big role. The radio show was a big factor in me becoming known in Sarasota. I like to think that I played a role in bringing a lot of the arts back from a dormant state, that on the media, that they weren't as featured on the radio here until I did start Talk of the Suncoast. Correct me if I'm wrong. I love to know about, here we got Roxy, Deborah, Sarah, we got the foundation heads here. I'd like to know about the city commissioners, the sheriff's office, how this town works and runs. I knew nothing when I arrived here. Maria would cut out little pieces in Style magazine and say, hey, you've got to interview that person, and you've got to interview that person. And it took 4 years of basically interviewing most of the people here that are responsible for the thousands of non-profits that we have here in town, especially the arts organizations. I got to know who ran what, why it was in existence, that we have ballets and operas and theaters and orchestras that are comparable with those in any of the big cities in the United States. It took a lot of time and conversation to do that. Recurring success, the ability to listen. Maybe I love to listen, and I love to remember what I've learned and be able to use that information years onwards to be able to talk to the people that I'm now photographing. The success of being a photographer, basically having interviewed and lived with all these wonderful people for so many years now that they trust me as a photographer and know that if they let themselves be photographed by me, they're not going to find themselves with a wart on their nose, a closed eye, or badly lit when they get home and find themselves in a magazine or social media. The trust that I really find so important in this town.
Paul, besides the present time, was there a juncture in your life that you look back and smile at? What's a favorite chapter of your life?
I haven't had really many bad moments, I don't think. When my wife and I lived in a motorhome, we had a blast. And it was the two of us, really no money. When I started out, my dad had gotten 9 of his friends together. I guess he included made 9. And they put up $3,000 apiece for us to get started after I qualified for the tour. Halfway through my rookie year, we bought a motorhome, and we had a cat, and we traveled. And we didn't have to pack and unpack like everybody else. And that was our house. We didn't have a house or an apartment for 4 full years of our life. I never had to pay taxes because I couldn't make a profit. And golf. That's okay, right, Michael? Michael's responsible for keeping us out of jail now.
Here.
And,
that's right.
But that was just a wonderful time, a more innocent time. I think the demands of the tour, even then, were being revealed to me. I was playing against Johnny Miller and Jack Nicklaus and Lee Trevino and Tom Watson and Weiskopf, and these are Arnold Palmer was still playing the tour when I first got on tour. My heroes, Raymond Floyd, Hale Irwin, Tom Kite, Lanny Watkins, these guys, Fuzzy Zeller, they were all out there. And I never, ever felt that I could be on that level as a player. And I just think that, I don't know how it all happened. I think when I took it to another level mentally and went into this phase of concentration, then another phase of our life started. And 5 years after I got on tour, and literally, I don't know, a few months after, when did we move out of the motorhome, in '87? Well, yeah, when we had a baby. A few months before we had our first child, but I literally went from living in a motorhome for 4 full years on the PJ Tour to the 5th year being the Player of the Year. So it happened in a blink. I mean, I went 6 or 7 years prior to that, I had never broken 70 in my life. And Tiger Woods I think he shot 61 when he was 13. So there's a big difference. And but we made a success of it. She stuck with me. I know she doesn't love me for the money because we didn't have any money.
I just found out we've got 10 minutes left, and I got about 20 questions left. So we need to speed up our answers, unfortunately, here. And I hate to do that for this next question to Jean, but you mentioned fibromyalgia. How did that affect you? How has it changed your life?
Well, I had to retire maybe 10 years earlier than I would have done. I had constant back spasms. It has shortened my body considerably, and the challenge is to keep working against that shortening muscle, and that's basically what aging is. That simply is what happens to us as we age. So I have 90-year-old muscles, that's all.
Paul wrote, you went through a chapter in 1993, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. How did that change you?
Well, that was a big part of our maturing, I suppose, and no longer being naive about the world. And I guess when you look at your mortality for the first time at age 33, and I'm sure many have looked at their mortality at a much younger age, but our life was just going in the right direction from coming out of the motorhome to player of the year to getting better and better every single year until 93 when I won a major title. And then in the whole of 94, I'm doing chemotherapy and radiation, and my wife was taking care of me, and it was a real eye-opener, and I started to look at life differently. As I said earlier, it's not always what we accomplish in life that matters. Sometimes it's what you overcome. And when you look at your mortality, I think you begin to look at eternity as well. And so it was a very life-changing time for us.
Cliff, you've had an eventful couple of years. Besides becoming an American citizen earlier this year and voting today, you've gone on 2 walkabouts, last year through Eastern Europe and this year Australia and New Zealand. How did that change you?
Well, first I'd like to say that you can't do what I did without one of the most supportive wives in the world, because there's not a wife that would tolerate her husband going off for 3 months on walkabout on his own. So I've got to give my wife Maria the big credit for the fact that she doesn't begrudge anybody anything and has supported me 100% in everything that I've ever done since I met her the first day I came to Sarasota. Being on the road on my own is an eye-opener, Ray, because I work 9 months among you. I'm talking to people every day. Every free minute is taken with other people, and I need that time on my own to gather myself and find myself again after a hard season. I've got a very hard work ethic. Thank God my father was a hard worker, and I took that over from him, and I rarely say no to anything. You'll know that. So working is my breath. I need it. So it's why I've been photographing today. I can't sit down anymore. I just can't relax, and I have to do what I probably was born to do, because I find that photography again is the culmination of everything that I've worked for. So the trips help me find myself to come back and be the way I am for the season, which is and everybody in this room knows it's a damn hard season. And we all do it because we love raising money for all the wonderful organizations that we have in this town. And as Margie told me, you're never, ever relaxing. You're always working in the room. Every one of you sitting there is working the room. And that's what she taught me. And that's why I go on my trips and why I like to be on my own.
Gene, can you recall an embarrassing or awkward moment in your life or your career that you might have turned around, learned from, or perhaps grown from, an embarrassing or awkward moment?
Many.
Many? Tell us one.
Too many really to enumerate. I think that the main thing that you learn from life is that you learn from your failures. You really don't learn anything at all from things that you do well, or I never did. And yes, I've had an embarrassing moment. I fell into the orchestra pit once.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
You can't do too much more than that. They have to bring...
That's rock bottom, all right. Paul, did you ever swing at a ball and hit a spectator or anything, or tell us an embarrassing moment for you?
I picked off a few spectators.
Attaboy.
I was leading a tournament in Abilene, Texas, playing with Hal Sutton, probably the best ball striker of my generation, and Hubert Green, maybe one of the, I love Hubert, but boy, he could rip you to shreds if he didn't like you. And he loved me because we both went to Florida State. But I was leading the tournament in Abilene and hitting a 6-iron off a par 3 tee, and Hazelrock shanked it. Hazelrocket shank into the water. It didn't get this high off the ground and went right into the water. And needless to say, I mean, I'm playing with the best ball striker. I know Hubert was going to tell the whole tour that.
Yeah.
That was pretty embarrassing. There's lots of people watching.
Cliff, can you recall an embarrassing moment you turned around or whatever?
I think going up on my lines is always an embarrassing moment, and it does happen once regularly through any play that I'm in on the stage that I'm going to forget or fluff some lines and just stand there like an idiot looking silly, trying to think of what the next line is. And I think that's probably the most embarrassing thing, because I'm very self-critical in that respect.
Right. Jean, what was your experience like becoming an American citizen? Why was it important to you?
Well, it was profound. We only had television in Rhodesia in the 60s. I used to watch Leave It to Beaver for a half an hour in the evening. And we saw so much about America, we read about America, and I feel it's the greatest country in the world. I have traveled all over. There are very few countries I have not lived in, and this is the greatest country. We are so fortunate. We really, really are.
Cliff, today was your first time voting ever. Cliff, tell us about why it was important for you.
I agree wholeheartedly with Jean, first of all. Yeah, today was the prime experience, basically the first time I exercised any rights as an American citizen, bar coming back from Australia and giving the guy at immigration my passport, which gave me a great deal of pride, because up to that point I'd had to stand in the non-residents, line to come back and with a blue passport, and here I am was a wonderful experience. Yeah, I became an American citizen because I love Sarasota, first and foremost. I love this town. And everybody here has taken me under their wing, and I felt that having had a green card for whatever it was, 12 years or something or other, why the hell would I renew a green card when I intend to spend the rest of my life in this town and want to be part of a community? And and of course 1776.
Oh, yes.
I mustn't forget.
Sorry about
mention.
that. Sorry about that, by the way.
I mustn't forget the fact that I was in at the Oslo, part of the cast for 1776, and at that time it was going through my mind, listening and learning about the signing of the Declaration of Independence and how it all came about, played a very important role in my decision to apply for citizenship. So that was the reason.
Paul, you've captained an American team, the Ryder Cup. You've been all over the world. What's it like to be an American overseas? Proud?
I think, yeah, probably always very, very proud. Social media has changed the world quite a bit, and I think now we know, maybe for the first time, that in my world anyway, that not everybody loves us. But America is still, I feel, the great land of opportunity and hope, and I don't think there's enough emphasis in this day and age, especially in our politics, that the decisions you make are what impact your life. And there are definitely many people in this country that have it way more difficult than others. There's no question about that. But there is a decision-making process that goes along with growing up, and I just hope that America isn't being framed as a system that's now unfair or fixed or rigged. I just can't buy into that. I do know it's difficult for many, many people, but I just feel like decisions are really, what makes the difference. Whether she wanted to work as hard as she did to become as great as she was, you're energetic and you do what you do, but all of you in this room have made decisions that have allowed you to be successful, and I think the emphasis on the decisions you make, I think, are something that's very important, and all of you in this room can be proud of the decisions you've made to get to where you have in your life. And although we've all made bad decisions in our lives, and I've made plenty, you learn from those, as you say. And America's the great land of opportunity. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to carry the flag to foreign countries.
Jean? If you were queen of Sarasota for a day, what sweeping change might you make?
I couldn't possibly tell you the truth.
We've got them.
So much.
The mayor is here.
The mayor and the sheriff is here, so be careful.
I would pass an edict that every single person has to become a volunteer and to give something of themselves or their worth to our community. And I would
Great.
make
That is great.
And I would make the Van Wezel into a 3-theater auditorium so that we could really give our arts the prominence they deserve in this community.
Cliff?
If I were Queen of Sarasota for a day, I'd have a lot of friends.
A big hand for Beniva Fruitville. No, that's who he actually is. Go ahead.
I felt the question coming. I'd probably make 41 a 4 or 6 lane road, and thus enabling us to move during season.
Paul?
I was going to go with the traffic as well, and
Yeah.
the construction. I'd love to see all the construction stop, and in the wintertime at least, when all the tourists come down, or not the tourists, but the seasonal residents, and just let us have our roads back. The traffic is really tough, but I love it here, just like you both, and it's been a pleasure being on stage with
Okay.
you all, and to be here to represent the Pines, and on behalf of the Pines. My mom's an assisted living facility up in Bradenton, and we love it, and I can't wait to get old enough to move in there with it.
Well, we hope you'll come to the Pines.
I'd like to say something about the Pines before we end, because I know you're coming. Is my mother-in-law down there, that darling lady?
Yes.
She's been here now for the 2.5 years in the Pines, being looked after by Estelle and John and their organizations. And I just want to thank the Pines from the bottom of my heart for all the care and love they've given my mother-in-law and everybody that is in the Pines as well. This is from me personally, all right? Thank you.
There are many people in this room who have had relatives, friends that have been cared for in the Pines. I actually do rehab there. And my darling husband's sitting there. He and his former wife, Anne, they actually built the physical rehab facility there. And we are both committed going forward to be always a part of the Pines in this community.
Wonderful. It has been a pleasure. Cliff and I have been friends for years, and Gene, we just met. It was lovely meeting you. And Paul, I was in the grocery store a few years ago, and a guy approached me and it was kind of following me around. He said, how's your golf game? I said, my golf game? It's pretty bad. Why? Yeah, I like watching you on the tour. I said, I'm not Paul Azinger. And you thought you were good looking until now, right? All right. Wait, let's put myself down. What do you mean? Quickly to your family, your wife and your mother-in-law, right there.
Absolutely.
Your
Maria's,
and
both
your,
of them.
Your sister and?
Yes, and Al and the 2 tables that are supporting us today.
Wonderful. And Paul, you have?
My wife, Tony.
And I want to mention my beautiful girlfriend, Erin. Erin, wave. You want to get a shot of her if you can. Folks, thank you so much for supporting the Pines. I want to bring back up Estelle Crawford, the foundation president, for some closing words. Just thank you very much.
I adore you. I just adore you.